Hello, my name is Emberly Juarez. I am doing the What's My Take assignment. I'm not with a group because I just need to submit my assignment. I've tried making contact with the group, or tried getting something together, but unfortunately, I've had no luck. Um, I am my own group. I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Emberly Juarez. I am a mother of two, a mother of three if you count my dog, three girls, including my dog. um, One is 5, one's going to be 2 in May, and then my dog will be 2. She just turned 2 as well. Wow, I just thought about that. I am a full time student this semester, and I'm also a full time employee and a full time mother. Life does get crazy, but I'm here for all the craziness. It's 12:57 a.m. and I'm recording this video because my littles are asleep. I finally was able to get them in a deep sleep to record this video. I live in an apartment, so they might hear me a little bit, but nothing too crazy. So the assignment that I decided to write about or make a video about is Whose Vote Counts. It's a Netflix documentary on Netflix. It is narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio and Selena Gomez as well. I think there was one more person, but I can't remember who was it about. I think that one really spoke out to me, even though I feel like we're kind of rolling back in time these days. I think that one mostly kind of, you know, came, stood out to me the most because I just started voting in 2018 after the 2016 election. I realized how, after the 2016 election, I could have participated in voting into preventing who became president at that time. I don't want to get too much into politics about this, but so after that, I went ahead and registered to vote, started voting. I voted mainly the major election that I participated in was for um, Senate. Sorry, it was Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke. Unfortunately, my vote did not win in that election, but participating in that election and realizing how I didn't participate in the 2016 election, it did something in me. It kind of woke something up. It kind of let me know that I need to start participating into what actually matters. Nobody in my family votes. I think me and my sister are the only ones that started voting. I don't. My dad doesn't vote. My mom doesn't vote. It's just nothing that's been talked about. It was just something that you kind of hear about but don't really do. Um, a lot of it because, like it's stated in this documentary, a lot of it was because my vote didn't matter. I guess that's what it felt like. So, um, not that it just was nothing that let's go out and vote, or it was just not a topic of conversation. Um, oh, I forgot to mention I'm 29 years old. So, whenever the election took place, I think I was like 21, right? Oh, man, that was like 10 years ago. So, yeah, like 21. Yeah, okay. Feels like so long. So I'm 29 years old. I just started voting whenever I was 22. Um, I honestly, the bad thing about voting, I feel like for me, my toxic trait whenever it comes to voting is it's not so much who I want to vote for, it's who I don't want to win. I'll see I'll see the candidates, and I'll kind of see what they stand for, and that's how I based on who I don't want to vote for. It's not about who I want to vote for, but it's who I don't want to vote for. So whenever it comes to me choosing a candidate to vote for, I told myself I should do a lot of more research whenever it comes to that because that does play a big part in a vote. Not only is it about who you don't want to vote for, but it's also about who you want to vote for and what they stand for, and what kind of values are they bringing to the campaign, or you know so 20 2019, right? That's what I said, 2018. That was my first election. My second one was the 2020 election. Um, and then my third was the 2024 election. I'll also vote Senate, governor, here and there, I'll also follow up. I really want to get into city council voting as well, but that's for when my kids turn older and I don't have a lot on my plate to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into this assignment. So the video, like I said, that I chose is whose vote counts. Like I said, I wanted to. This one stood out to me the most because, as I explained, I'm not really familiar with voting, how it's counted. I barely know what electoral college votes are. I just know like the surface level of it. I don't know the nitty gritty of it. But after watching this documentary, um, it really taught me a lot. One of the topics that um, kind of like not stood out to me because it's something that we've been learning in this course, or it's something that we have learned in this course, is voting only for white men. Not that it's surprising for me. It's really not. It's more like it's just crazy how it turned into. I think the part that I'm more shocked about is how it turned into how it was started as a privilege and now turned into a right. Not that it is shocking to me, but more like wow, like what a wow, like yeah, it is your right to vote. It's not a privilege. It's some if you're living somewhere, you should have a say in who you want to be representing you. So I thought that came as a surprise. I guess learning it, um, I didn't really realize that it was a privilege at a time. I just kind of always thought it was your right as a U.S. citizen. I never really going back into history books. I guess that's what stood out to me. Is that it is a privilege. So, and not even as a white man you could vote. You had to be a property owner in order to vote. You had to be a white man property owner. As if that doesn't narrow down the type of guidance that they were trying to instill during that time. Um, the voting, and then from later it went from only white men who own properties to all men are equal. I'm not sure if that it was in 1776, so I'm not sure. I don't think that meant. I don't know why I didn't write it more clearly. Like I have notes that I'm going based off of and topics. I think it's like 3 pages long. I don't know why I didn't write that clearly, but I'm sure it was all white men equal. So, woohoo for the white man, right? And I don't mean that in any other way than what it is. Um, but so that meant all white men were, equally counted to vote. They didn't have to own property or anything. Um, I think the other thing so it was a 3-part episode series. I think they were like 30 minutes each. Really interesting, super interesting. It kept me pretty entertained. And I'm not a TV type of person. My attention span is just way, and I just cannot. Once I get into something, like I'm binge watching it, and I'm like, anyways, I'm getting off topic. But it was pretty interesting. It was 3 parts. The second part of that part was of that first episode. It was felons being able to vote. Now, this is something that I knew. Like once you become a felon, you don't vote. It wasn't anything that really affected me, obviously, because I'm not a felon. But it wasn't anything besides it not affecting me. It was nothing that I really like cared for in a way. Um, so whenever they were talking about the felons, and felons wanting their rights back, restoring their rights back, I guess that kind of like stood out to me because it is a thing, you know. There are people that are felons and, they made those mistakes and they served their time and now they're asking for clemency. What I thought it was weird is that they were rolling back the clemency, and then whenever the felon would appear to a judge and be like, hey, like, I want to restore my rights, they would all get denied. So I thought that was super crazy. I was like, what was the point? Like, so what was the point of doing this if you're just going to deny them to show that you have more power or whatever? But as far as my opinion on felons becoming able to vote, I do believe now, I know in the documentary they said that, okay, felons can vote, that's fine. And I think that was only in the state of Florida, not the whole US. But I think, so they were like, okay, felons can vote, yeah, that's fine, but they have to pay all of their court fees and everything. Um, Court fees are pretty high. You get a speeding ticket and that's $300. I couldn't imagine felony charges to pay for court fees. So I think that was a little unfair. I think that was a little like, okay, now you're just making it difficult at this time. Like, if you're gonna do something, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and go for its full potential, but don't be like, oh my God, yeah, but then you have to pay this. So I thought that was weird. The other thing that stood out to me was non-citizen voting. Like, you coming here from another country and casting your vote, um, that was a little crazy to me because I was like, like, I would never go to Paris or France, Paris. I just say Paris because I've always wanted, but I would never go to Italy and live there illegally and then think that I can cast my vote. And I'm not saying that the people that did it are crazy, but how is this like, how is this not? So it seems like they focus more on the felons that are from here, obviously, because if they weren't from here, they would get sent back to their original country where they were from, right? But it seemed like all eyes were on the felons, and they forgot to tell the non-citizen people living in the U.S. that they're not allowed to vote. And I mean, I think I think that's a special thing about becoming a U.S. citizen is the fact that, like, you've studied and you've done everything, you passed the test to become a U.S. citizen. And I'm not saying that they have to do that, but what I mean is, like, whenever you get your citizenship, that's the best feeling of, like, I'm sure it is the best feeling of, like, wow, I can vote in this country. Like, wow. I mean, like I said, I'm putting myself in their shoes, moving to Italy and, being like, wow, I'm a citizen of Italy. Like, wow, like, I can vote in Italy. I can, So I think that was a little crazy, the fact that, like, citizens were voting without, yeah, and then later they changed it. And I was like, okay, I mean, I just feel like none of this really, like, would have affected me, but I just think it's crazy how that wasn't a thing before. So that one stood out to me. The next one was back in the day, back when voting, whenever they allowed for black men to vote, it was okay, you can vote, but your grandfather had to participated in the last election, and you have to pay a voting fee. I think everybody had to pay a voting fee. It wasn't just for them, but the fact that, like, they were like, yeah, your grandfather had to vote in the last election. It's just like, you're that's literally impossible because I'm first generation being able to vote. How is my grandfather, like, what? So that was so crazy. So that whenever it started, I believe in, when was it? Okay, yeah. So whenever it started, 3% in the South whenever it started and so forth, once it was happening. At a time, it looks like only 3% of black men in the South, the South as a whole, um, it was only a 3% vote, count. And I'm like, wow, like, that's crazy. Like, they literally, like, just set up the generation. I thought that was so wild. I thought, I was like, wow. It's just crazy to hear about these things because we live in today's world, that I feel like going back to when things started, it's just like, wow, like, shout out to our ancestors for really setting the tone. And like, everybody wants to complain about how like today's world isn't really going as great, and I can totally agree with that. But I mean, we need to fight like our ancestors, or we need to set the tone like our ancestors. We also need to care like our ancestors too. Like, that takes a lot too. Like, I can sit here and say it doesn't affect me, but if I want to set the tone the way my ancestors did, I think it should affect me. Going off topic, um, Lyndon B. Johnson setting the voting acts right. I thought that was really cool. Um, I know Lyndon B. Johnson was a president. I know we have highways named after Lyndon B. Johnson, but I didn't know that he did the voting rights. I thought that was super cool. I didn't know that the voting rights had to be restored every single almost election, because I think from whatever I saw, George Bush, I'm sorry, was restoring them. So that's from the first episode. Act after a Oh, I thought the voters that's what the Voters' Rights Act. I know like it was kind of not getting banned, but I know it was they were like making it stricter after Obama's presidency. Thought that was wild. I was like, wow, like this the system is just so crazy. Like they literally want to they literally want what they want, you know. So the next episode, um let's see here. I think the next episode, I kind of watched them out of order. The next episode was about the funding of the political parties and the campaigns. Um, so I definitely believe that there should be a limit on the funding part. Um, just because I don't think money or like these cool ads, or I don't think they should be the to like, Google Gaga over whenever it comes to a presidential candidate, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, the lights and everything look great, right? But whenever it comes down to the nitty gritty, when they do become president, you know, those lights and glamour, it goes away and real stuff starts to happen. So I know that I thought it was crazy. Oh man, I didn't write where the location was, but um, yeah, I didn't write where the location was, but I know Chevron. They were raising money for the candidates. They were the Chevron, uh, gas, gas, gas. What is it called? Gas field, oil field, I guess. I didn't know why I didn't write the location down, but I thought it was crazy how they were raising money for one of the candidates, and they raised a lot of money, and that candidate like ended up losing because everybody in that city was trying to get Chevron like to take better care of the plant, and it seemed like they weren't, so they were trying to close it down. So Chevron didn't like that, so they went ahead and sponsored one of the candidates that was running at the time for the city, and that candidate ended up losing like super bad, and like it just looked super bad on Chevron. So I thought that was crazy. I was like, wow, they really went. I think they spent like 2 million, 3 million on the campaign like itself. I'm like, wow, that's wild. Like, I thought that was super crazy to me. um there's a theory that the better the campaign, the better amount that they're gonna spend on a campaign, the better the vote's gonna be. I don't think that's fair, because like it goes back to like why like the glitz and the glam's gonna go away, and when they're up there making presidential speeches, like we have to that's what we need to think about, not like how much money they put into their ads. Let's see here. 2.3 billion in campaign. I think that was back in 2020. Yeah, 2020, when they spent 2.3 billion in campaigns. I thought that was so wild. 2.3 billion. You know what we can do with 2.3 billion? Instead of having these campaigns, we can like actually change the world, you know? Instead of talking about it, instead of running these campaigns. Let's see. Oh, and then I saw, so for this episode, I saw that AOC, I don't really know her name. I think it's Alexandria something Cortez. I saw that she was in this documentary a lot, which made sense, right? Because and it really put into place why she was so relatable, because she didn't have the money for a campaign. She started off working at a restaurant, and so she really didn't have the funds to campaign for. And the fact that she won as representative, is House representative, or one of the representatives in the House, I thought that was amazing to watch. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I already like knew about her. I already, everybody knows about her, right? But I already knew a little bit of background about her. But to really put two and two together, I was like, wow, like that's so cool. Like, she literally like went house to house to go like campaign for herself. And I'm like, wow, like that's what it's about. And I'm not saying that you have to like not have money to do those things, or I'm not saying you have to not have money to become relatable. No, not at all. Like, I think the person who has been financially smart um, should be able to run or be a candidate, because obviously if they're financially smart and they know what they're doing, that's good for us. So I'm not saying that in order for you to be relatable, you shouldn't have money, but I think it's the sweat, tears that she put into running as candidate. I think that was amazing. I think it's not all about the money. It's not all about the shirts. It's not all about who's performing at my at my campaigns, at my political party. Who's performing, which newest artist is performing. No, I don't care about these celebrities, these singers. I want to know like, I think that's what kind of upset me about this past election. I felt like the candidate that lost could have really made a difference if they weren't so focused on who's performing at their campaign. I think it just made the whole campaign look bad, really. Um, at the rallies, that's the word I'm trying to use. I think it just kind of made the whole campaign really look bad and look distasteful, not because of who was performing. It's not about who's performing. It's about, why do you have all these people, all these celebrities coming to make these speeches and performing, when at the end of the day, like, this is not about, there was a term said from the other candidate. He said something along the lines like dance party with Beyonce, and it just kind of hurt whenever he said that, because it's that's what it looks like, and I just wish the other candidate would have focused more on other things versus who's performing at these rallies. It's not about who's performing at these rallies. We can see a celebrity performance on TikTok if we want to see a performance. No, we want change. And that's why on this episode I really felt like there should be a spending limit whenever it comes to campaigning. There should be, just a maximum amount of what they can spend, because it's just it some campaigns just draw the wrong attention and for the wrong reasons. The last one, let me see here. I wrote a statement down that they said in this episode, where it says, you don't have to be rich to win, but you do have to have money to run. So that really stood out to me, especially after hearing like AOC's story. So the last episode was mainly going over the gerrymandering. From what I believe, that's dividing each city into red or blue. I believe that determines the electoral college votes. That's the gerrymandering. I know, like, let's say, from the point of view that I'm trying to point across is, we're in Dallas, Texas. We're blue. Terrell, Texas is red. I believe that's what gerrymandering was referring to. let's see. On this one, I know that Georgia, what stood out to me on this one was Georgia having machine fraud or voting fraud. I'm sorry. The machines would glitch whenever they were trying to make a vote. Um, the poll locations, that's what's crazy. So, okay, now I'm going back. This one was mainly about like um, voting as far as mail-in ballots and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the location closing. I know. So the citizens of Georgia were upset because they felt like their vote didn't really matter because, and they were really, they feel like it was voter fraud because every time they would go up to a machine, it would glitch, or voting polls, the hours for voting polls were ridiculous. They wouldn't be open around certain times, and um, let's see here. Mm, wow, so this one, I wrote this one down. It says America is the lowest for voting participation. And to be honest, I didn't even know the United Kingdom voted, or I didn't know, like, I know Mexico votes, right? But I didn't know it goes all, I don't know. I guess, I live in a bubble and I didn't think about it. But yeah, America is the lowest in voting participation. And that's kind of sad because at the end of the day, like, I understand there's some people that kind of want to just mind their business about it and they just don't want that, whatever, nothing's going to affect me anyways. They're either not in that tax bracket or they're not a minority that it will affect, which is totally fine. But I think at the same time, um, whether it affects you or not, you don't have to choose a candidate. You don't have to. You can just go in there and vote. I know I have friends that vote third party, but they're mainly looking out for their city. When they're voting, those are the candidates that they are mainly voting for or for their council. So I think that's amazing. Um, because it does feel out of touch whenever it is a presidential election that you're voting for. I think whenever it's a when it's what am I trying to say? When it's somebody in your city local voting, I think that's whenever it's like, oh, okay, like this one actually matters to me because I live here. Let's see here. I already went over the restoring rights for felons. The mail-in ballots. I'm not sure why we're still doing mail-in ballots. Um, but I get it. I really do get it. But I think mail-in ballots shouldn't be. They should be collected way before the election. Like a week before the election. I thought it was crazy how. Oh my God! I just remember this last election. Um, the one of the mailboxes was on fire. That was so crazy. But okay. Um, so now that I think about it, I'm like, wow. But I think mail-in ballots, like if you want to vote by mail, it's cute. It's really cute. Like I seen on the video, like this whole family sitting at a table voting, and I was like, that's so cute. But I think it should be stricter. I don't think you should be able to cast your vote the day before the election. Right here, which is the main reason why. Right here it said 650,000 mail-in ballots were not counted. A lot of the reasons why were because the signature wasn't properly signed. They didn't sign at all. The mail, or not the mail, but the what am I trying to say? The oh my God, what am I trying to say? Um, the printed name on the mail-in ballots, it didn't match the driver's license or their issued driver's license. Um, yeah, so I think mail-in ballots are cool, but I think they should also be a little bit more stricter. I don't think that's, I just don't think I just don't think it's great, especially to be counting and, I don't know. I just think, and I think honestly, now that I think about it, whenever it comes to mail-in ballots or even just any type of way of voting, I really think it should be done, at least I think there should be like an announcement, like they're counting the votes, counting, and then from there, which, I mean, that's kind of like the same thing. I think they should announce who became presidency a week later. But now that I'm saying it out loud, it makes sense. But yeah, this is it for what's my take. This was actually really good, really fun to do. I really enjoyed it. Obviously I don't have a group that I'm doing this for. It's just myself. I tried to do the best that I can with what I can. I just couldn't let one more day go by without doing this video. So, yeah, that is all I have. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.